Hi everybody, I'm going to be recording this. I just want to let you know. I'll try to stop the recording if I can figure out how to do that correctly before people ask questions, in case they don't want to ask them on a recording. So hopefully everyone can hear me. I want to thank you so much for joining me this afternoon for some information about the College of St. Elizabeth's Combined Masters in Nutrition and Dietetic Internship Program. I'm Kathleen Carrozza. I'm the director of the Dietetic Internship here, and I've been with the college for 20 years, first as a clinical faculty and then for about 12 years now as the director. And my main responsibilities are really running the program, and I teach an undergraduate course in food production in the fall and in food management, dietetics management in the spring. So my background is more in management. I went to Montclair State. I think we have some Montclair State students on the call. And I did my internship in Peoria, Illinois, and my master's at New York University. I started in clinical nutrition, and then after I took a leave to go do my internship, and then after my internship, I decided I wanted to do more in management because I really loved that aspect of my internship, and I really liked school food service. So let me get started. The program, I think most of you on the call that registered are from the area, but in case you're not, we're in Morristown, New Jersey, which is pretty much, I would say, slightly north central New Jersey. Kind of right in the middle of the map from east to west, and probably about a third of the way down the map of New Jersey from north to south. Students in our program typically are able to live in New Jersey for the supervised practice year, and that's going to make it a little bit easier, but you'll hear more about that as we go on. So of course our mission is to prepare our students for accreditation for the through the accredited program so that they're competent new professionals in dietetics. And we try to do that with some unique learning opportunities, with a lot of faculty support, and by trying to promote your professional development throughout the program within the select concentration. And we have two concentrations in our program. One is entrepreneurial nutrition practice, and the other is community and public health nutrition. You'll hear more about the specifics as we go along. The college is a Catholic college, so our mission is rooted in the college's long history. I think we're celebrating 125 years next year, and we also have just celebrated 100 years in our department last year. So while foods and nutrition as a standalone major was originally part of home economics, within the field, dietetics within our college has been around for a long time. And actually the Dietetic Internship, which started as an AP4 program, was the first graduate level program at the college. The college itself went co-ed. We were a traditional women's college for traditional undergraduate students until two years ago. I think we have our third class of guys this year. And the graduate and continuing studies programs, so change of career people, dietetic internship graduate programs, have always been co-ed. So we're really focusing on looking at how you can become leaders and focus on building your leadership skills as well as your service commitment for both the service to the community and the profession and ethical practice. Those are our, that's our mission. So within our mission, we have two goals which feed from the mission: preparing you for ethical evidence-based practice and entry-level positions, meeting all the core competencies as well as the competencies in our concentrations, and to provide an environment where you can really build your own skills through different rotations in community nutrition, self-assessment of your competence at different levels, and doing a draft plan for continuing eds, because this is a lifelong learning profession. Once you're done with your internship and pass your RD exam, you then still do continuing ed to maintain your credential. And then we also have a capstone where you kind of reflect on everything you've done throughout the combined master's internship program. So the internship aspect of the combined program is the accredited part of the program. And so we focus on the accreditation standards from ASCEND, and that allows us to have two concentrations. So our first concentration is entrepreneurial nutrition practice. This concentration stemmed from basically a few years, well, maybe 10 years ago. We took a concentration that we had in nutrition education and counseling and merged it with a concentration in food and nutrition business and business and communications, and we kind of merged the best of those into our entrepreneurial nutrition practice concentration. The match code for that is 418, and the students match in August and match in April for an August or fall start. The community and public health nutrition concentration is also an April match. It's D&D code 134, but students in that concentration start in January. So they have a spring start. So if you're a December grad, you would be eligible to like let's say you're graduating not in December of 18, but in December of 19, you could apply to our program in April to start the following January. Students can, when you hear about the program, there's a lot of parallels between the two concentrations. So sometimes students decide they actually want to apply to both. You can apply to one or both, but you will be matched to one specific concentration. So as I go through this presentation, if you decide that, oh wow, I really want to do the community and public health, but they have 36 students they match, I think I'm going to apply to both, you have to know that you have to be willing to do the entrepreneurial, and vice versa. If you really want to do the entrepreneurial and you're not that interested in community and public health, when you hear about it, then you just want to apply to one. A lot of students who are from the area and are really geographically concerned with where they're matched do apply to both, because you'll see there's a lot of parallels throughout the program when I describe it a little bit more. When you apply to us, there's one application fee and one checklist, even if you're applying to both concentrations. So if you only apply to one concentration or if you apply to both concentrations, it's just one fee and one checklist. What we do when we rank students, so I'll tell you a little more about our ranking process, but basically when we rank students, we don't look at which concentration they applied to. So let's say we rank 40 students or 45 or 50 students for our 36 positions. The selection committee, which is comprised of 10 people, literally puts people 1, 2, 3, all the way down. Then I go into D&D Digital, just like you guys will rank your preferences. I go into D&D and I list the students. So I list them in the exact order that they were matched, that they were ranked by the selection committee for the program. If every person in our 50 list applied to entrepreneurial, it would be 1 to 50. If number 1 only applied to community, then the first person listed for entrepreneurial would be the person that was second, if that makes sense. So basically we take everybody and rank them, and then if you applied to only one concentration, you're only ranked in that one, but in the same exact order that you are overall for all the other students who applied to that concentration. I know that sounds a little confusing, so I hope that makes sense. If anybody has any questions, I have you all muted because sometimes when you're doing these, you can hear a lot of background noise, but just unmute yourself and jump in and ask, or write your question down for later, and there will be time to ask questions. So either way, jump in, or most likely if you have a question, somebody else does too, or if you want to wait till the end, some of your questions might get answered. So as I mentioned, we have 36 positions. We have 16 in our entrepreneurial nutrition practice and 20 in our community and public health nutrition. So we are a large program in comparison to others, and so therefore that means you have a good shot of getting into our program if you meet the basic criteria. And obviously, if you apply to both concentrations, you have a better shot of getting in here. But it's really important that you only apply to both if you're actually interested in going to either one of them. Just some pictures of a student, and one of our, actually Linda here is a clinical manager, but also works at Natterar, which is got a culinary school associated with it, and she has done some food demo work with our students. And then this is a Girl Scout class, which is why you can only see the backs of the heads of the kids for the most part. So what is our program like? So it is a combined master's internship. It's 38 credits. During the first year, you take master's coursework all online. So you take 9 credits, 3 credits in the summer, and then if you're matched to the August start entrepreneurial, so you graduate in May, you start in August, you do 9 credits in the fall, you do 9 credits in the spring, you do 3 credits in the summer, all classes, all online. Then you come in the following fall and you do supervised practice and graduate in May. If you are in the community concentration, you would start in January, do 9 credits, in the summer do 3 credits, in the fall do 9 credits, start supervised practice in January and go through August. Then you go, I'm sorry, someone was just knocking on my door, I apologize. So that is basically why you see 7 classes here. Let me move this little bar. So you can see that the courses that you would take actually during the year, everybody in the program takes health promotion and aging, interventions and strategies for weight management, advanced nutrition and metabolism, research, child and adolescent nutrition. This one is in the summer. Right now it's 2 credits, and we're looking at making it 3 and taking a credit away from something else. So this would be in the summer. These 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are the same for everyone, and they're taken during the year. The 677, this course is a little unique. It's done with coursework in the beginning of the semester and supervised practice at the middle to the end of the semester. So the first 7 weeks of the semester, you work with the faculty teaching the class on doing a needs assessment and designing a program. Then you're implementing that program during the second half of the semester, and those 80 hours of supervised practice count toward your overall hours in the dietetic internship component. This course was trialed this way last year, and if you're aware that there's a new framework for future model programs, so programs who wanted to kind of try our new model of education. So the new model of education is a more coordinated format where coursework and supervised practice are done in tandem. So we wanted to see how that would work, and so far this course has worked very well that way. And so that would be done as one of your courses during your first year of graduate courses. So you can see you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 courses, 1 in the summer. So what about the 6th course? You have 7 graduate courses. So the 7th, okay, now here we go. So this is the difference. In the entrepreneurial nutrition practice concentration, students choose either to take integrated nutrition and health therapies or sports nutrition. They're both being offered, I believe, now the same semester, so students basically get to choose which of them they want. So if someone is interested in entrepreneurial and they really want to go later into sports nutrition, or if someone is more interested in alternative medicine and private practice type counseling, you could choose to take the integrative nutrition course. So this is the elective related to the concentration in the, that makes up the 7th course that you take. Community and public health nutrition is the course that would be the elective course in the community and public health concentration, intro to public health. So other than the one course, whether it be entrepreneurial or community, all of the other coursework is the same. So what about all of this online coursework? So probably you've taken an online class, maybe or maybe not. So our online program, it is a graduate program. It gives you flexibility to do the coursework from home while still being employed, but it's still a very rigorous program, and it does take 30 to 40 hours a week of coursework to complete the classes. You can gain some perspective because a lot of times we do have students who are from out of state. In addition to the interns taking courses, there are freestanding master's students who are oftentimes dietitians or people employed in maybe school nurses or pharmaceutical people, pharmaceutical reps, people who work for food companies. So other people who want to get a master's in nutrition might also be in your class. So you can get a little bit of a different perspective at times. Sometimes you'll be in the class with dietitians who have already been practicing for a while but are coming back to get their master's. So to reiterate, 3 courses in the fall, 3 in the spring, or 3 in the spring, 3 in the fall, if you're depending on the concentration, and 1 3-credit course in between. So basically everybody is taking this class at the same time in the summer. Some information about the coursework. So Dr. Ann Boysen is our program chair and our director of the grad program. And there's been a lot of work on the coursework to kind of meet some standards for effective online teaching and learning. So the courses focus on current issues, on researching current issues, on healthy aging, and you see the variety of information, which is kind of tied to the names of the courses that you saw. All of this is really built on the foundational courses of metabolism, advanced metabolism, and understanding of that, and an understanding of advanced metabolism, research in healthcare, and ethical practice. So ethics is not a separate course, but interwoven into all of the coursework. So again, really emphasizing newer research, what other resources are, what are web tools, because it's done online. The courses are asynchronous, meaning for the most part, the coursework is posted and you have a time frame to complete it. The coursework is opened weekly or for 2 weeks at a time, and you have specific assignments that must be completed every week. So this is not a type of program where you could say to yourself, I'm going to do all my advanced nutrition work the first 2 weeks, and then I'm going to do all the work for this class, and then I'm going to do all the work for that class. They're meant to specifically be weekly participation, just like you would if you were in a classroom. There are a few classes and a few faculty who do a couple of sessions a semester in real time using this Zoom platform. So the faculty would let you know ahead of time, you're registered for this class. We do 2 presentation days. They're going to be on this day and this day, and give you some heads up so that when you're planning any schedules for work or other work that you have to do, homework or other responsibilities, you can figure that out. So again, online, but not, a little bit of real time for some faculty. We are a physical college and you can physically come here. So for those people who live in the area, they can make appointments with faculty, they can come in person, they can meet each other on campus to do work. Students can be as involved as they want in coming to campus. And if you're remote, for the first semester, or the first actually 2 semesters. You can also call us, email us, make arrangements to do a phone conversation, make arrangements to do a Zoom conference call, whatever you need, we're here. And you know, this is what we do, so we're happy to help. So again, the online coursework it is interactive. In addition to doing the web conferencing, there are discussion forums, and for the most part, most of the work you can log in from anywhere at any time during that, like, let's say, week time period. And each faculty has a certain day of the week that she opens her classes. So for example, advanced nutrition might say the first day of the week is always Tuesday. All work is going to be due on Mondays, and all new work is going to be posted on Tuesdays. So everybody kind of tries to stagger that so you don't have all your work due at the same time, just like in a regular classroom setting. Students are able to access all the same resources that a student on campus can access. The help desk, disability services, or I should say academic success center, advising, counseling services, any services that are available to students you would have access to. We do have an orientation. So for all new students, you are invited to an in-person orientation, and that is, you know, someone from the administration speaks and someone from IT, and you know, there's some workshops and people from the business office and things are open and that kind of thing. And then we also have a meet and greet with students who are matched to us, for them to, you know, see us in person and ask questions. And we do have Dr. Boyson and Boyle, who are the main teachers in online, have established an online, like a week course that you can do before you start, that just gives you like practice in, this is what it's going to be like taking this online course. So as I mentioned earlier, Dr. Boyson and Boyle and Dr. Conlin are working with a program called Quality Matters, and it's a peer-based approach to assuring course design that is considered to be the most effective for online teaching and learning. So in order to, you have to go through some Quality Matters training, and it's kind of a national standard for online courses. So in order to get Quality Matters certification, you have to go to training, and then you actually submit your course to be evaluated by peers who are from other institutions, who look at your course and give you input on whether it's appropriately designed for students. So they're really working hard at trying to make it engaging and active, so that course participation is, you know, making you feel like you really get to know each other. So there's both individual and group projects. There's traditional grading, like exams and written projects and presentations, and then also things like discussion forums, and as I mentioned, web conferencing. So after you're done with the supervised practice, the dietetic internship courses are divided below. And so we have a somewhat unique clinical training model that we're actually just starting this year, so we're really excited about it. You would be the third class using it if you're matched to our program and apply and are matched to our program. So the simulated practice and experiential learning in clinical nutrition includes 80 hours of simulation and case study work preparing you for work in the hospital. Then when you're in the hospital, we have a clinical faculty model where paid clinical faculty, employees of the college, are doing your training with you. Every student does 2 additional weeks of clinical, which is the advanced experiential learning, 1 in outpatient and 1 in extended care. Everyone does a variety of nutrition communications pieces of work, management, and then some community simulations. Because you've done 80 hours of community in the other course, the 677 course, as a part of that course, the community hours in the regular core part of the program then later include a couple simulation activities and a community service project together. There's a capstone project, and then depending on your concentration, either experiential learning in entrepreneurial nutrition practice or in public health and community nutrition programming. These are just some pictures of the students. Throughout the year, the students are working in small groups, both at the sites. So a lot of our hospitals will take 2 students for management to work together. And then they're also doing individual projects. So community service projects on campus together, presentations for professional meetings, so poster sessions. These are just pictures of students over the years, one here at the supermarket. So once you've done with your coursework the first year, you're now ready to start supervised practice. So traditionally we have in June for the entrepreneurial group, and this coming Monday, so in September for the group that starts in January, community and public health, we have a 1-day administrative orientation. And that's where we give you some work to do over the few months before you start with the internship part of the program. We go over all the medical background. You have to have a very extensive medical clearance background, criminal background, and urine drug screen for the program, and that's all part of the contractual agreements we have with all of our sites, and everybody's pretty standard on that in healthcare. Then right before you start the program, we have a 1-week program orientation. Some of those hours count towards some of your supervised practice, and some of them are just kind of preparatory. In clinical, you have a 2-week clinical orientation with simulations, and then you have 7 weeks with this clinical faculty model. So we are working right now with Morristown Medical and Overlook Medical Centers, which are large major medical centers for Atlantic Health System. And we have clinical faculty. We have a full-time person at Morristown, Nadine Grant, and we have 2 part-time people job sharing at Overlook, Robin Gould and Winnie Hoodis. And basically their title is clinical faculty preceptors. So they are basically college employed preceptors who are doing all the clinical training at the hospitals. And the reason that we started with this model is because we noticed that dietitians were having more and more and more responsibilities. They started doing order writing. They started doing nutrition-focused physical exams. They went from having an average of 12 patients to having an average of maybe 18 patients, or an average of 10 patients to 15 patients. So their patient load has increased over the last decade. The acuity level, how ill the people are when they're there, has increased over the past decade. And the number of hospitals in New Jersey has shrunk. So we had this kind of bottleneck of training in clinical, where you're limited to the number of placement sites you can have for interns because of the clinical bottleneck, just not having enough volunteer clinical faculty or volunteer clinical preceptors. So this model allows for us to have students trained, 4 or 5 students together. And so basically we have the students who start in entrepreneurial nutrition. Half the group starts in clinical in August and half the group starts in management. And then you flip. So in the fall semester, the clinical faculty have a cohort of entrepreneurial in the beginning of the semester, a cohort of entrepreneurial in the second half of the semester in clinical at the hospitals. And then the same thing happens in the spring. Cohort of clinical at the beginning of January till the middle of the semester, and then another cohort of clinical. So basically we have 4 cohorts of students going through the 2 different hospitals, trained together with the clinical faculty in groups of 4 or 5 students. Our curriculum is very structured, and it does include some different areas than some of the other programs, in that we do have the clinical but we also have a professional development as well as, management and community, and then of course the concentration. All of your practice sites are planned and scheduled by faculty. The only caveat to that is that community class that you take the first part of the program, that's part of your coursework. Our faculty teaching that course, Dr. Beth Conlin, will give you some ideas of practice sites that have worked in the past. But you could be living anywhere. So for example, we have a student in Chicago right now. We've had students like in other states who are doing their supervised practice for that class, the 80 hours, wherever they live. All the other practice sites are scheduled with the faculty. The one challenge we have is that we need to know where you're living. So if you're moving from out of state, or if your family's moving, a couple of times the last few years we've had one address for students and then their family moved and now they have to drive further, because we try to think about your driving situation when we place you, but if we don't know where you're really living, that makes it a little hard. Our faculty is got some diverse background. So as I mentioned earlier, my background is more in management, and I supervise that area with an adjunct faculty who also has management experience and works actually as a preceptor at one of our facilities as well. Luann DiGuglielmo is half-time with us and half-time with DaVita. Luann's been a dietitian for over 30 years and in Reno for a long time, and been a faculty here for a long time. And she has been involved actually with the internship since it started, which is about 26 or 7 years now. So she supervises the clinical area and works with the students on the simulated practice. She teaches the child and adolescent nutrition course. She's going to be teaching that with Dr. Boyson. And she also does placements for the outpatient rotation and the extended care rotation. Christine Meisner is working on finishing her clinical doctorate at Rutgers. She has a lot of years of experience as a clinical manager, where she also did outpatient counseling, and she supervises our entrepreneurial nutrition practice concentration, placing students in the supermarket and working with students on motivational interviewing in both concentrations, and working with students in nutrition education unit for entrepreneurial. And then we have the clinical faculty who this is new for us this year, so they're just hired. Nadine Grant has a background. She's worked in renal and long-term care and subacute. Robin has worked in bariatric and in acute and care, and Robin has worked in acute care and in corporate wellness. So we have kind of a lot of different areas of the background covered. Both Dr. Conlin and Dr. Boyle have an expertise in community, and then Dr. Boyson is got a strong background in research, and her postdoc work has mostly been in weight management research. So we have all of the different areas kind of represented in the field. We do some activities during the year where we are networking with other professions. So for example, or other professionals, on Monday, the class is going to the Association for Healthcare Food Service Professionals meeting at their nutrition-focused meeting at Hunterdon Medical Center. And, we do different activities where we meet with other people. All of our curriculum is designed to have goals, objectives, and then activities that tie back, and they're all designed to meet the competencies. We have written assignments that are graded by faculty, and that gives you some consistency. Some pictures of the group's celebration times, activities, posters, out together, and our first class that graduated with the MSDI. So what are the rotations like? So 1,200 hours is the minimum. Our program is scheduled for 1,216 hours, which only gives you 2 days wiggle room of being out sick or having a problem. So you have to do a minimum of 1,200 hours, and that is not negotiable. So when students are absent, or late, we kind of have to look at it and see how we can make the time up. There are going to be times when you might do more work in a rotation, so you might have an assignment outside the regular rotation hours that you're working on. So it all kinds of evens out, but you do have to do time logs and keep track of the hours because we have to show that you've done at least 1,200. So the way it's planned out to be is 440 in clinical, so it's still a very strong base in clinical, 240 in departmental management, 140 in community, 196 in professional development, which includes 40 hours of motivational interviewing training, and then your concentration. This should actually be, I'm sorry, no, that's correct, 200. So how is that broken out? So there's 80 hours of simulated clinical prior to the acute care exposure. Then there's 7 weeks inpatient, Monday to Friday, medical surgical for 4 weeks, and 3 weeks of nutrition support. And again, that's in small cohorts at a medical center. Everyone then has an outpatient week and an extended care week. The outpatient week could be in a diabetes center, a renal dialysis center, or if you're bilingual and you're able to work in a clinic setting where there's a lot of Spanish speakers and you really want to practice that, we also have a relationship with an outpatient clinic that we can set a student up with for outpatient. Extended care, there's more choices. For extended care, again, these are both of 40 hours a week. Extended care could be a traditional long-term care that has like long-term care and subacute rehab. It could be a rehab center that focuses only on rehab. It could be psychiatric. So we have one large psychiatric center that a lot of the students have asked to go to this year. It could be child developmental or adult developmental centers. It's basically, it can also be an LTAC. So if you're very interested in clinical, we have a relationship with a center that has a large LTAC. So someone who's ventilator dependent, and people who are living in a facility because they're vent dependent. And so that's another kind of avenue of extended care. So the idea of extended care is the fact that you're really looking at the differences between acute care and caring for someone, nutritionally providing care for someone who's living somewhere. Outpatient, the focus is more on what are the different roles of different team members in outpatient, and how does the outpatient environment differ from acute care with regard to what kind of things you're focusing on for the nutrition care process. The management rotation is 6 weeks, and it includes, it's on average 4 days a week for the 6 weeks at a healthcare center, or if you've had a lot of healthcare food service at a school site. Most of the students are at hospitals, but sometimes we have a student at long-term care or at a school site. And then we are implementing and we are going live next week with Campus Kitchen. So Campus Kitchen is a national food recovery program, and it's basically designed to take food that is otherwise going to be wasted and repurpose it into meals for hungry people. So I think we will be the 3rd school in New Jersey to have one if we get it up and going the way we hope. And we have the 2 national reps coming next week to do some training, and we are hoping to get it fully started the end of September. So it's really focusing on looking at how to save food from the waste stream, feed hungry people, and build relationships with them at the same time. So that's really, we're really, really excited about our Campus Kitchen starting. For community, in addition to the hours you did in your course here, there's a 24-hour community service project. So we have about 4 or 5 times a year where we have students in groups of anywhere from 6 to 8 or 10 on campus at the same time, and we do different projects or community service activities on campus. And then we also do a field trip to a developmental site, developmental center, one of the few that's both a school and a hospital. One of the sites you could use for your extended care. And then we also do some simulated activities for that. In professional development, all the students attend the New Jersey Dietetic Association annual meeting. All the students participate in some training on professional technology and communications, and we're very excited. One of our alums is working for Ketchum, which is a large PR firm, and she had a PR background, came back and did nutrition and dietetics, thought she wanted to do her own business, and then really found this job with Ketchum and is in heaven. I think she is really excited about the job some days and then really saying this job is stressful, but that's the way PR is. So she works specifically on branding, public relations and branding. So she came to campus during our regular orientation week and did an activity all day with students on how to use professional social media, how to look at basically presenting the products, emphasizing what's important in PR. And then they did an activity with Splenda Products, which is one of their company products. And they did an activity in the Foods Lab together. So that was really fun. And she's going to come back and do that in January. And I think she's willing to come back and do that every year. So that will be exciting. And then motivational interviewing. For those in the entrepreneurial nutrition practice, that focus is basically during the 5 weeks that you're doing nutrition education and counseling at a corporate and campus site, you're doing the motivational interviewing as part of that. For those in the community concentration, you're going to be doing it in a more concentrated format over a week before you go out into the community and different types of environments. Each group during their concentration is in their small cohort is going to be doing an evidence analysis investigation project together. So coming up with a question and then looking at what the research says about that. And then we have a 2-week entry-level 80-hour experience that the students can kind of choose what they might like to do. So the entrepreneurial concentration, 80 hours in the supermarket with retail dietitians, primarily with ShopRite, and then 120 hours in corporate and campus wellness. So typically students are placed 1 day a week. Either we have several college campuses that we're providing free nutrition counseling at here, Drew University, which is right down the street. We also have an alum who works at Stevens in Hoboken and another alum who works at Monmouth in at Monmouth down in Long Branch, Monmouth University. So Christine Meisner, my colleague, our full-time clinical faculty, places students based on where they live, and then it's usually 1 day in a campus environment and 2 days in a corporate wellness environment. For the community and public health concentration, that's running for the very first time this coming spring, summer. And some of the activities we have planned are working with summer feeding, working with after school programs, working with Grow It Green Morristown, which is an urban garden, working with Zufel and other community clinics, and working with SNAP Ed. So we're still formalizing exactly what that's going to look like, but those are the types of activities that students will be doing. More pictures of the group. I think as students go through the program, they really develop some great friendships, and we're very excited to have, this is Winnie, one of our new clinical faculty who's an alum. Here she is. In this picture, you could tell I haven't changed the pictures for a while. And we have a few other pictures there as well. So to apply, what do you need? Well, obviously you need your DPD verification or your intent to complete. You have to apply through DICAS. You have to be finishing your bachelor's degree before you start the program. We do not require GREs. And if you're applying to us, you're applying through DICAS, and you do not do a master's application here at the college. If you're matched to us, then we send you some instructions to get you into the college's system, and you do, basically you put in your name and your address and a little bit of other information, and we send over to admission from our department those students who were matched. We send over the additional required paperwork for admission. So you're basically applying to the dietetic internship through DICAS, and you're automatically, if you're matched to us, automatically admitted to the master's. I mentioned earlier we have a selection committee. It is faculty and some preceptors, past preceptors, alum of the program. And it's very interesting because everybody kind of looks at something a little different, but we have very specific kind of guidelines for scoring your applications. Every applicant is scored on a 100-point scale, with the GPA being worth up to 40 points. So obviously there's not too many people who have a 4.0 GPA and getting 40 points for that, but whatever your GPA is, you can, understand how many points you would get. It's pretty straightforward. If you're 3.2 GPA, you have 32 points there. We request at least a 3.2, but we require a 3.0. And we have found that students with less than a 3.0 can sometimes struggle with taking the exam. So if you have less than a 3.0 GPA because you're a second career, because you had a real bomb out the first year, we kind of just ask you to reach out to me so we can kind of look at your likelihood of getting matched so we don't waste your time. Work experience, we look at your work experience. We do look at clinical and hospital based. So if you're working in a diet office or working in food service in a hospital, that's going to weigh more than if you're working at a restaurant. If you're working as a diet tech, that's going to weigh more than if you're working in the diet office. So we actually have like a rubric of how many points we give. But if you're not working in the field and you've done some volunteer work and you are working somewhere else, you're still going to get credit for that work experience. It just won't be quite as high. Honestly, what we found in the last few years since we've gone to the master's combined is that we have fewer people applying who do have work experience. This year's class has quite a few with some, but that's not always the case. It's just not always feasible to get that experience. So we realize that it can be a struggle. But it will serve you well if you have that experience or can get it. We do have a narrative that is, again, scored on a point scale. We ask for 3 recommendations, preferably 1 work-related, 1 DPD director or other faculty who knows you well. And then a 3rd one can be from a volunteer experience, another faculty, unrelated work, whatever, but not a relative, even if they're a doctor. We've had that, and the committee gets really bent out of shape, understandably. We really want to know people who aren't your relatives, what they would say. And I will be honest, we don't weigh the narrative very, very heavily. It is in the point system, but the 3 of them are equal to the same weight as your narrative and your interview and your work experience. So basically your GPA is 40 points, your work experience 15, your interview 15, your narrative 15, and your recommendations 15. The volunteer experience, I kind of fold in when I'm scoring the work experience. So I look at the 2 of those to kind of get a sense of your overall experience when I'm scoring those. And I do all the scoring for work experience. Christine does all the scoring for narrative so that we try to keep them consistent. The interview, you're scored not only on your answers and how you present yourself, but overall, do you seem to be a good match for our program? So the person doing the interview, it's a one-on-one interview, is going to be looking at, is this person, is everybody kind of, is this person a good fit for our program? Did the interview go well, but also overall, when we look at the package, what does the person think? And we have some guidelines like an excellent match, a good match, acceptable match, that kind of thing. more pictures. You definitely develop a lot of friendships during the year, that's for sure. So some tips. So definitely you're all starting this process early. I just emailed out to DPD directors last week that we were doing this today. And I've got, 20 of you on the call, which is awesome. And a lot more have signed up for the November call or the in-person. Definitely if you like what you're hearing, but you want to come to the in-person open house, you're more than welcome. You can also email me questions after if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm a little confused about something. But my recommendation is to do exactly what you're doing. Find out as much as you can about all the programs that you're applying to. If you know anyone who graduated from your school who's at that program, maybe see what you can find out from them. Consider who's going to write your letters and give them some lead time and provide them with either, sometimes they might want you to fill out a form for them, or they might want your resume. Try to pick people who you think can speak well of you, and take some time to develop your narrative. I always tell students, pick your meanest friend and ask that person to read your narrative. Someone who's going to be super honest. It could be a parent, it could be a sibling, it could be a friend who's an English major, or it could just be a friend who's very brutally honest. But try to get someone else, as hard as it can be to have someone read something like that. It's really important that everything is spelled right, that you're referencing the right school, that you've answered the questions asked. You're going to have guidelines in your narrative from DICAS. When Christine looks at that, she's looking at, are you hitting all those points? Follow the program instructions. Our program has very specific instructions. On our website, oops, let me see if I can get our website up. On our website, if you go over to this little box, the easiest way to find us is just go here and type in Dietetic Internship. Go to that link. This tells you how to apply. So when you click Apply Now, you're going to get the page that gives you this information. So this interview availability checklist is due postmark February 1st. That is before everything else is due. The reason that we do this is that we are trying to get a sense of how many people we're going to have to interview. We have a limited number of people who interview, and we have to try and figure out if we have enough slots available. We ask you to please give us 4 dates that you could do the interviews and a 3-hour window that you're available on those dates. So if you know you work evenings or you have a class a certain time, and it's a $60 fee unless you're a reapplicant, then it's $40 and you can put what year you applied. And then this gets mailed to our program coordinator, Elizabeth Gruthius. If you have questions, you can email me. So you have to do 3 things. You have to apply through DICAS, you have to rank us with D&D, and you need to mail this, and this is due before the others, postmarked February 1st. We also have it outlined here, what you need to do. So definitely check that out. And that will help you. Make sure you use the right match codes. And again, if you go back to our website, if you come here, you have a sample of our academic calendar, our program mission. This program overview is a several-page document that goes through everything that I'm going through today, and it can guide you through the rest of the process as well. This document gives you our practice hours broken down for each concentration. And then this is in case you want free nutrition counseling for our entrepreneurial people. But basically this information here is everything you could possibly need. We also have a frequently asked questions section, which I'm going to go over in a second. And then we also just talk about the relocation. If you're not from New Jersey, it's fine to live outside of New Jersey, but you know, it is rough cost of living wise to move here for the year. So you have to be prepared for that expense. More students. So financial aid. You know, apply to the Academy Foundation, although I will tell you I'm on the scholarship committee and we had over 980 applicants for scholarships this year, and there's just not that many scholarships to go around. But it doesn't hurt to apply because you just never know what you might be eligible for, and fill it out completely, because I will tell you that sometimes there's, you know, something for a student who lives in a particular county in a particular state. So all the questions they ask are asked specifically because there's a scholarship related to that. You are eligible in this program for government loans, and you can do payment plans. So the cost of the full program, 38 credits for the master's and the internship, is a little over $40,000. I'd like to tell students, if you were very fortunate and had either a lot of scholarships, a lot of state aid, or a lot of parental support during your undergraduate years, and you don't have a lot of loans, then it makes a lot of sense to think about applying to us, because you're going to get a lot of support. You're going to be excited about our program and our concentrations, I think. And we get very positive feedback from our alums. If you already have $60,000 in loans, it makes me nauseous to think about students coming out of dietetics training with $100,000 in loans. It's just very upsetting to me. Obviously, you have to do what you think is best for you, but I'm telling you, as a parent, it's not best for you. So really think about that, the cost factor, just to make sure it's the right thing for you. More pictures, more pictures. So what are our graduates doing? Of course, a lot are in clinical, in long-term care, critical care, pediatrics, renal, clinical management. We have some in healthcare, food service, and in schools, retail. We have a lot of supermarket RDs. We have some doing corporate wellness. Some are in the pharmaceutical industry and food company industry. Some are working for food banks and food insecurity programs, and we've had students go to do some research at NIH and go on to doctoral work. And actually, I noticed that in this prior slide, if I can get it to be prior, I don't know why I'm not. This is Dr. Conlon. She went on to get her doctorate at Albert Einstein School of Medicine, and now she's a faculty here. So you could tell I need to switch out some of these pictures because that was a while ago. More pictures of the students. So frequently asked questions. Do you need to relocate for an experience? So if you are, so for the clinical, as I mentioned, it's either at Morristown. Right now we're using Morristown Medical and Overlook. We try to place students to the one closer to them if we have your correct address. But for the 7 weeks of clinical, you may need to do more commuting if you live in North or South Jersey. So otherwise, we try to place you within what we consider to be typical New Jersey commuting time and distance. So we try to keep student commuting each way to 45 minutes to an hour, recognizing that in some parts of the states that might be 10 miles, and in other parts of the states that might be 40 miles. So we kind of understand the areas, and we try to do our best to place you so that you have less commuting time if possible. This is our first year with the clinical faculty model, but we do anticipate that in addition to your, you kind of have to plan that the work day is 40 hours plus lunch. So that's 8.5 hours a day. A lot of the hospitals, especially in clinical, the 2 hospitals we're working with in clinical and some of the other big medical centers for management only have off-site parking for students and staff, and they shuttle bus people. So you really have to figure commuting anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour each way. So now you're talking about a good 10.5 hour day. And then there might have been something that came up during the day that you don't know that you have to look up. So, you know, you're looking at a good 12-hour day doing this. So pretty much during the week, during supervised practice, you're not going to have much time for anything else. As I mentioned before, we really look for that 3.0 GPA as a minimum. If you had some kind of outstanding circumstances that you want to talk about, I'm open to that. But we find that people with less than a 3.0 kind of struggle on the exam, and it's really not fair to put people into the program and take their money if we don't think they're going to be successful taking the exam. Working outside the program. So during the coursework, because you are not commuting anywhere, a lot of students have found they can work part-time. We have a few students who try to work full-time, but it is literally like working full-time and going to school full-time, because you are, if you work a regular 8-hour job and you get home at 5 o'clock and have dinner, and then you still have to do 30 to 40 hours of coursework a week, you know, now you're talking about at least one full day on the weekend and 3 to 4 hours every night doing classwork. So part-time work is more advisable. I talked a little bit about the costs. I would say that the thing that I'm happy about is that students have rated our program an excellent value. 95% of the students say an excellent value, and 100% say a good value or better. So I think that earning both the master's and the internship in the 38 credits over 2 years works really well for people. And again, the supervised practice sites are pretty much arranged by the faculty based on where you live and your other experiences. And then involvement definitely for the community rotation. And if we have any, we do ask students, like for the outpatient and the extended care, a preference. So for example, I'll do a survey. Do you rank the preference of outpatient, diabetes, renal, clinic? And then you can tell me which you prefer. And the last thing I put on there is closest to my house. So if a student doesn't care which experience and they just want to be closer, that's fine too. You're evaluated both with preceptors evaluating you, faculty evaluating you, and self-evaluation all throughout the program. If for some reason, because we have this new clinical faculty model, their whole job is supporting the student learning, they do not have any clinical responsibility for patient care per se. So they're not assigned, like right now, traditional dietitians who are volunteer preceptors, they might have a floor assigned to them, and they might have a productivity expectation of 15 to 18 patients a day. The clinical faculty's not going to have, while they might do some charting with the students, there's not that same burden of the number of patients that have to be seen. So their whole focus is on helping you learn. So we don't think students are going to need a lot of additional support, but that being said, because we do have this model, we have more one-on-one attention available for longer time periods for students. And I think students in small cohorts learn well because they talk to each other and kind of help each other as well as the faculty. Very excited that all the students so far who have taken the exam from last year's class have passed. Generally speaking, our students do very well. What I find is students with high anxiety for test taking struggle. And it's more related to anxiety than their knowledge base. You definitely have to study for the exam. You definitely have to be prepared for it, both in your knowledge base, but also with your nerves. We don't really have students having big trouble finding jobs. They may not find their most ideal job right away, but most students within a few months have found employment. The one thing I have noticed in the last couple of years, now that dietitians are doing order writing at the hospitals and doing nutrition-focused physical assessment, some of the hospitals will not hire students until they become an RD. So I'm finding more of the students studying right after they're done and taking the exam before they look for work, or taking on other types of per diem work until they can pass the exam, So I think in a clinical setting, it's getting a little harder to find employment if you haven't yet passed your exam. Everyone who has a 3.0 or better will get an interview. If you have less than a 3.0, we'll evaluate your whole application and make a decision. You have to earn, out of the 100 points, you have to earn at least 65 points to get an interview. As I mentioned, clinical experience is given a little bit more weight, but we do look at all work experience. And we really, it's nice that you've had undergrad related practicum experiences, but everybody has them. So we don't kind of put a lot of emphasis on that. And for volunteer experience, we're more looking at experiences where a student has shown growth and development and leadership skills over time versus the student who's done 100 things that were one day, show up for an hour. So that's kind of what we look at. So I hope that this has been informative for you, and I hope that you will think about us as a place for you to do your supervised practice and your master's. As I said, I'm very excited about Campus Kitchen. And the other thing I'm kind of excited about is we just started using this system called Prism, which is an internship management system. And so I will show you the fake student that I created to be myself. My grandfather used to call me Kate, so I made up a fake student, Kate the Great. That's me on a hot air balloon on my 50th birthday. And this system is an online internship management system where all the students' sites are listed and then all their resources. So we've eliminated a lot of paper, and students have their curriculum based on, for example, if I'm looking at the acute care clinical site, I would have only the information for acute care here. If I'm looking at clinical outpatient site, I would have only the information under resources for that site. So this system is new that we're doing. We've got a lot of new initiatives happening that we're excited about, and I hope you're interested in them. So I'm going to let you unmute yourself and ask any questions, or if you prefer, I'll open the chat box also. And if anybody wants to type any questions in the chat box, feel free. If you don't have any questions, I should have put in here my email address, but you can see my name up here. So it's kcarozza@cse.edu. If you just go to the website, you know what, I apologize. This URL needs to be updated. It's cse.edu, but go to that box and search Dietetic Internship. This /DI is probably not going to work for you. They just changed it over the summer. I'm sorry I did not update that. So I will go ahead, and if you don't have any questions and you just want to sign off, I'll just wait until people are signed off, or like I said, you can unmute yourself and ask. I'm gonna unmute everybody. So if you don't have a question, you can go ahead and shut out. But if you do have a question, everyone is unmuted. So go ahead and ask it.
Hi, my name is Catherine Remington.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi, I'm just wondering how many applications you received compared to how many you accepted.
So the last couple of years since we went to a combined master's internship, I would say that we've actually seen fewer applicants, but more qualified applicants, more applicants specifically qualified for our program and interested. So we are matching at about half of the number of applicants, a little bit better than that, probably closer to 60%. So that would be, maybe I think last year we had 68 applications, and last year we had a number of students accepted from our pre-select undergraduate program. So far this year, I haven't had anyone ask me about that on campus. So we have a very small class this year, and that could still happen, but at this point it looks like we're going to be matching 36, which is not the case every year because we do have a pre-select program for our own students. Anybody else have any questions?
My name is Gabrielle Maggie.
Hi, Gabrielle.
Can you only apply through the diecast during their April 2018 portal open, or can you also do the November 2018?
So right now we're only doing April. If you are a December graduate, December of 19, you can apply to the April match.
Okay.
So even though it's, at this point, we have not opened to, we haven't done the application process twice a year because it's so intense.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been able to fill our classes by just doing April. So at this point, even if you are a December graduate of December of 19, you could apply April for our, you could apply the February deadline for April match for January 2020, but only to the community concentration at that point, if that makes sense, because that one starts in January.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Also, you had mentioned before about the recommendations. You said unrelated or unrelated recommendation